What's up guys, T-Croc here, welcome to the vlog. A little bit sick, but I'm just going to make this video very quick. I got a lot of requests after I made what you need to turbo at 3G. A lot of people wanted to know about a supercharger since I've had that set up in the past as well. So I'm just going to go over what you need. There's going to be a lot of similarities, but there is a few differences in this. So the first thing you want to do is just make sure your engine is in good health. So simply just do a compression test, make sure all the numbers are good across the board. Next, I highly recommend this, but it's not really needed, is this book called Supercharge. It's by Corky Bell. This is the same person who made Maximum Boost, which is basically a bible of how to turbo a car, any car at that. So this is the same thing. It's just a supercharged version of that, and it goes into very detail of how to build a supercharger system, all three types of superchargers, I might add. So the one we're going to be talking about is the one that was designed by Rip Mods. They basically made these a few years for the 3G Eclipse, and then they just discontinued and stopped making them because the sales weren't there. I actually took a quick look and I saw a few used ones for sale on Facebook and Craigslist and stuff like that. They range from $500 to $1,000, which isn't that bad, but some of them were missing a few parts. So I'm just gonna go over what Rip Mods actually came with, and then I'm gonna tell you how I designed mine. So Rip Mods came with the shaft and the blower, and that attached to the motor, or basically to the heads. And then there was an alternator bracket and an idler pulley and a couple of a blow off valve. The thing that I changed on mine personally was I felt like it came with a V5 blower, so I actually switched to the V3, which is a little bit bigger. I felt like the V5 was just too small. I mean, they put those on 4-cylinder cars, and just reading through certain forums and actually reading through the Supercharge book, it basically calculated and saying that I needed to have a bigger blower. So I opted for the V3. I actually just went through Vortec and used their exchange program, because they actually will buy back V5 blowers and give you credit, and you can just swap it out for whatever blower you want. So if I wanted to go for a bigger blower, I can send them back the V3 and then they can give me a bigger blower instead, and they give me the credit. Or you can just sell it off online or something like that and just buy the blower itself. So one thing about the Rip Mods setup was that they made it a blow-through setup, and you're not supposed to pressurize our MAF airflow sensors. So I had to convert mine to a draw-through setup. So instead of having the MAF in front of the blower, it was basically kind of like an intake, and it would draw the air instead. So with that being said, that means that you had to change your blow-off valve. You had to recirculate your blow-off valve. Recirculating the blow-off valve basically makes sure it's a closed system. So let's just say you didn't recirculate your blow-off valve and you let off the gas and your blow-off valve goes off. That means you're going to be releasing air, unmetered air, and it's going to cause a big rich condition, and you could stall. So let's just move on to intercooling and all that stuff. So there's a bunch of options. The first option was, which Rip Mods offered, was water and methanol injection, and you want to use the 50-50 ratio. You don't want to inject straight methanol. It's a cooling effect. You just basically tap it into the intake right before the throttle body, and it just sprays into the motor, which is not a bad option. I actually ran methanol for a little bit, and then I switched over to an intercooler setup. Before I show you my intercooler setup, I will mention that you can use a water to air intercooler. You have to design it yourself and be custom. So I went to the intercooler setup, just a straight air-to-air intercooler. I was lucky enough to actually have the Rip Mods prototype one. before I say, you can't just pick one random intercooler. There's actually like a calculation that you have to do, which is in the Supercharge book, and it calculates the piping, the length, the size of the intercooler, because it's different from a turbo and the pressure drops a lot. So like there's a lot of guys out there who will just slap a random intercooler and they lose like 5 pounds of boost, and that's what you don't want to happen. So I did use the Ripmods prototype one at first, but it was just so big and bulky, and I didn't like the look of how the front bumper was when I cut it all out. So I did my own calculations and made another intercooler instead, and compensated with the piping, and it looked a lot better. It fit a whole lot better with the bumper and all. So just be careful, calculate it out. Like I said, get this book called Supercharge if you're going to design your own. Let's just move around to the fuel setup. Injectors, air. You can get some fuel rails from the VR4, and just make sure you get the 3SX loop. That way, it's just a straight bolt-on, and you don't have to worry about any kind of spacing like that. Injectors, I highly recommend STI injectors. For one, they're cheap, they're OEM. You can go to a WRX forum and find them used, and they're usually always in good condition. And you can just make sure you just have to buy a couple sets, because we have 6 instead of, the STI having 4. Fuel pumps, you can go with the AEM, you can go with Walbro. That is just strictly up to you. Personally, I ran a Walbro fuel pump and it ran fine. The fuel pressure regulator is optional. I always recommend upgrading the fuel pressure regulator, because when you get a bigger pump, you risk the chance of overrunning the stock one. A lot of people say it doesn't happen, but I've seen a lot of stock fuel pumps fail in my racing days. So I just say might as well upgrade to something a little bit better. And then you have a fuel gauge to know if you have any kind of fuel pressure problems with the fuel pump. Headers are a must. A lot of people try to go cheap on this. You don't have to get the long tube headers, but I highly recommend them. I think you will get more power out of them, but you can go with the eBay versions. Just don't run stock OEM manifolds. You're gonna overheat. It's just not beneficial. You're just gonna be doing yourself a disservice. They don't flow enough for the supercharger setup, so make sure you get some type of headers that flow a little bit better. For tuning, the cheapest is of course ECU flash. You can go and buy a cable. The only problem is you just gotta make sure you get the boosted ROM. It's probably the cheapest. And then if you have enough money, you can run a standalone like AEM or Hydra. I ran both. I had AEM and I've had Hydra. Then there's a few miscellaneous things that you can get. Of course, you're gonna need some kind of gauges, some kind of wideband, or something to monitor your air fuel ratio, and then a boost gauge, and then oil pressure, whatever you want to go for that. And that's it, guys. It's really simple. It's just the main thing of getting the shaft and blower. The shaft is the main thing. The blower you can purchase separately, but the shaft is a very custom piece, and unfortunately Ripmods will not make another one, so you have to find them used. And if you guys want, I can do a video of comparing turbo versus supercharger. It's going to be probably a biased video, but I can tell you the pros and cons of each one and what I liked and what I didn't like. So let me know down in the comments if you guys want to see that, and I will do a video on that. But that's it. I'll leave a video of how the supercharger sounds. It is very loud. People will definitely hear you coming, and I did enjoy it, but I think it brought a little bit too much attention. So that's it, guys. I'll see you guys next week.